strawweights looking to move their way up through the ranks. We have Brazil's Spider Girl, Maria Oliveira, who did look a little bit, in a vacuum like Anderson Silva last time out in her matchup with Gloria De Paula. In this matchup, she is going to have 3 inches of height and 9.5 inches of reach at strawweight against Lil Monster, Vanessa Demopoulos, the former LFA champ. And for Demopoulos, it felt like, okay, next month, she's going to be in the UFC. It's going to happen, right? Like, she won the belt over there. She was unsuccessful here and there. She had to fight on Contender Series. She ends up in the UFC. She fights JJ Aldrich up a weight class and doesn't get the win. But listen, JJ Aldrich is a tough out for a lot of women in that division. So Demopoulos moves down to 115, which is her division after all. She fights Silvana Gomez-Juarez. And yeah, that fight that Gomez-Juarez just had against Kovacevic left a lot of question marks. But for Demopoulos, she gets dropped early and then submits Gomez-Juarez. Her last fight out, she takes on Jinyu Fry. She wins that fight. And listen, she was an underdog in the matchup. And you look at it overall, it was an odd fight for her. But regardless, for Demopoulos, a strong strength of schedule. Overall, pro combined opponent record, 33-12-1. So a pretty tidy record right there. Demopoulos really has fought a good level of competition. For Oliveira, the same thing can be said. I mean, she wins against Gloria De Paula last time out. She was a pretty big, underdog in that fight, a plus 215. And getting that win right there, I know she wins in a really, really close call. She won the first round. She won the third round. 7 of 6 that actually threw out their overall scores on MMA decision. Scored it for De Paula. But Maria Oliveira can say this at this point. I sent somebody outside of the UFC because Gloria De Paula coming up this week's actually fighting in a 4-woman tournament with Invicta at Invicta FC 50. So De Paula there, Valeska Machado also in that tournament. Somebody that Maria Oliveira also beat on the regional scene. So for Oliveira, some wins outside of the UFC that some losses like the loss on Dana White's Contender Series that set up Marina Rodriguez very well. A tricky one because, you match those two up again right now. I don't think Oliveira is going to win that fight. And then the other fight that Oliveira has is a loss on a record that you really look at is Takana Asakura over with Ryzen. But Asakura is one of their stars, so kind of being brought in to lose, you kind of feel like in that fight. And she really struggled on the ground in that one too.
And I feel like this is one of those fights where the winner, no matter what, gets a major step up in competition. Because with the strawweight division, it is weird. You always think the women's bantamweight division has been around for the longest. Strikeforce just kind of became the women's bantamweight division. Ronda Rousey, the champ, all that jazz. But the strawweight division is probably the deepest at this point and is probably the most competitive.
I think flyweight is now.
Oh, flyweight?
Yeah, flyweight's
I think
hot.
Strawweight has so many good fighters. You got people like Lemos, Rodriguez. There's some really talented fighters down here. All I'm saying is, strawweight does have a very deep top 15 of a lot of talented fighters. And then there seems to be the other fighters who are outside of the rankings who are all just trying to fight and scrap for that spot to kind of become that 15th fighter. Because it's something we joke about. Every rankings has that 15th and 14th fighter who, on any given week, depending on who just won the freshest matchup, they're going to then get that spot. The strawweight division really does feel like there's a big separation between some of the more proven fighters and some of the unproven fighters. And for Demopoulos, like you said, she always has been a fairly well-known unranked strawweight in this division. And if you're on then a 3-fight win streak with a good win over Silva, her last time out, Gomez-Juarez, who just lost to someone who just fought for the title, relevant fighters, I really do think Demopoulos is then going to get a bit of a step up because at 34 years of age, I think at some point she is going to have to kind of get it going with ranked fighters. But the thing about Demopoulos that I've always liked is her level of aggression. That's never something that's tapered off, no matter what point of her career she's at. It's something that she does with her striking and with her grappling. She is kind of a scramble-based fighter, which sometimes gets her into some poor positions, but when you risk it, you can get that big reward too, and that's the thing about Demopoulos. She will give up poor positions in pursuit of better positions, but she just never stops moving once the fight hits the mat, and that's the really thing that does set her apart.
And if you do look at this one, for Oliveira coming into the UFC, she takes on Tabitha Ricci, plus 220 underdog in the fight, loses on all 3 judges' scorecards, 30-27. She gave up the takedown. She ended up down below and just really couldn't get back up in some of those positions. But if you do look at it for Demopoulos in the same breath, she has trained a lot with Tabitha Ricci in the past in Southern California, as well as that Fight Ready. But the thing about Demopoulos is her takedowns aren't at the same level as Ricci, and that really is the struggle. She is so adept at grappling, but she does have a hard time taking the fight down to the mat. And in the same breath as well, when you look at Demopoulos' striking, it's a lot of jab, overhand right, jab, overhand right. And it's not like a full extension overhand like a Chuck Liddell. It's a tight compact, like a pitcher throwing a baseball in tight. So it really is an awkward shot, and I'm not sure if she's going to be able to land that against somebody like Oliveira, who is so fleet of foot and has that reach advantage. And 9.5-inch reach advantage, if you don't use it, like, wow, what are we doing?
And that's why I do think this fight really does come down to how often can Demopoulos get the takedown and when can she get the takedown in the round, because I think she will struggle at range. I think it's quite obvious, like you had said. When you're at a 9-inch reach disadvantage in a fight, like, that's pretty uncommon, especially for this weight class. And if Oliveira is able to keep her on the outset of her distance, Demopoulos doesn't really have a lot of great combinations to then work her way in. Like you had said, it's a lot of single shots, it's a lot of winging those power shots, and just kind of hoping that she can then collapse into range based off those power shots. And against someone like Oliveira, who should be able to use her movement on the outside, I could see a world where Oliveira could win a pretty obvious kind of 30-27, just fighting that Caitlin Chukagian game plan, if you will.
Somebody who beat Vanessa Demopoulos as an amateur, Caitlin Chukagian.
But I can also see a world where Demopoulos is able to go in there, wing that overhand right effectively enough to disguise her takedown attempts with some of her strikes, and to just go out there and put a pace on Maria Oliveira that she's not really used to.
Well, we'll see how it plays out. The odds in this one, Demopoulos open to plus 130, minus 101 right now. Oliveira open to minus 150. Oliveira now a minus 122 favorite. So the odds closing in on par. We have a look at the Topology votes, Matt. Surprised to us as they are to you. I'm going to say one of these fighters is a fan favorite in North America. So I'm going to say over under 70% Demopoulos.
I think it'll be under.
I think it's going to be under. Look at that. 546 total votes, 71% Demopoulos, 77% by decision. For the 29% that have Oliveira, 88% by decision. I once said on this channel, I didn't think Maria Oliveira would ever win a UFC fight. And we're here right now, and she beat Gloria DePaula. Now, it was controversial, but regardless, in that fight, she had a lot of success at range against somebody who's a Muay Thai artist in Gloria DePaula. So a big win there for Oliveira. Again, she was a pretty big underdog there. And if you do look at it, comparing the opponent's records in the wins of Maria Oliveira to those of Demopoulos, I already mentioned it for Demopoulos. Out of the wins, 33-12-1, including Gloria DePaula, who was 6-4 at the time of that fight. For Maria Oliveira, the wins, 14-22. So not the same level of competition. I don't necessarily like the takedown entries of Demopoulos, but I think having that experience of training with somebody like Tabitha Ricci for such a long time, fighting out a fight ready, going to get you ready for a matchup like this. PRVT, so Oliveira is going to have Jessica Andrade to get ready for a fight like this, so you see those comparisons. But the strength of schedule, the 1-2, the entries, I'm going to take Demopoulos, but again, if somebody from the outside, round the outside. If Oliveira gets to win 9.5-inch reach advantage, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. So I have Demopoulos here.
I've got Oliveira, but this is one of those fights where I don't think the winner's going to make their way to the top 15 anytime soon, if I'm being completely honest. Now, both fighters could show us something new in this fight that could make me completely reassess my opinion of them, but I do think Demopoulos and Oliveira do have a lot of progress to make in their games if they do want to actually start fighting some of those top-level fighters, because even think about a fighter like the Karate Hottie, who right now we're looking at Tapology, isn't even in their top 15. Like, she's a pretty complete mixed martial artist. I know she's at the end of her career when you think about it, but she's someone who can strike with volume, she can grapple, she does have all of the areas you look for in just a mixed martial artist, and I don't necessarily think either one of these ladies had that sort of well-roundedness to their game. I know I'm comparing them with someone who is a longtime vet of the division, but still.
Ranked 11th in the UFC is Waterson Gomez.
So, well, I didn't realize she was that high still, but I do like Oliveira for her physical attributes in this fight. I do think she'll be able to keep it on the outside, but again, I think this is one of those fights where one of us is going to look dumb no matter what. I think one's going to be fairly dominant with their game plan once they are able to enact it. I still really know whose game plan is going to be able to get put into place initially.
Oliveira going from over a plus 200 in her UFC debut and her second time out to being the favorite in the matchup. Matt going with the Spider Girl here in, listen, homage to Anderson Silva. I'm going to go with the Lil Monster, Vanessa Demopoulos, to get the win. Let us know down below in the comment section who you have. Lewis taking on Spivak in the main event. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.